This woman writes and says, my grandson is 21 years old, and I just discovered that about 2 years ago, he got married. That would be a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, 2 years ago, didn't tell anybody, there was no hello, no envelope in the mail, forget the wedding. 2 years ago, and he's lied to the whole family. He's hiding this thing. His mother even asked him about it because I guess there were some suspicious signs, probably like she never leaves his side and stays in the house. But he lied again. But now we know for sure that he's married. I'm not going to ask you why or how. Recently, he came to my house while I was away and took care of my dog. And he had a party at my house with drugs. This I know for sure. And his friends, while they were on drugs, surprisingly, no, not a surprise, caused $2,000 worth of damage in my house. And I know for sure it could only have been them. They were the only people who came in the house. He lied, which apparently is a pattern, and said he didn't know anything about it. If this isn't familiar to every single parent who is listening, then you don't have any children. He said that he didn't know anything about how it happened. Now, it's true he may not know exactly how it happened. See, liars can always come up with a way to justify the truth because he was passed out possibly and unconscious at the time that it happened, but he knows how it happened. He blamed somebody else that wasn't even at the party, even though he was the only person who had a key to my house. This boy has had a hard life, and haven't so many. And I don't want to alienate him even more or make him feel worse. That's a really tough thing, isn't it? To teach somebody something, or even to simply protect your property or your well-being and have nobody offended. Very often the two are completely incompatible. In other words, you can't do it. Sometimes you can. We'll see. This is pretty pathologic lying on this kid's part. I mean, lying about $2,000 worth of damage, lying that he's married. And so now he's proven to be an irresponsible vandal in addition. So it's just prudent. It's just wise on your part, not a punishment, that he can't ever come to your house again, not without you in it. Never. He says, well, can I use your house? I'm freezing to death and I've got the key and I just need to go into the house for a minute. Well, I hope you don't die, but I'll bet you anything you can find a convenience store where you can warm up. He can't come to your house again, not without you there. You might have to have the locks changed if he won't return the key, or if you don't already have the key returned, but at the very least you need to have the key returned. There's some consideration, just throw it in the back of your mind, that if he returns the key, that he's returning a copy he made of the key. So you might have to have the locks changed. Now, do you have to throw this kid out of your life? No, there's no punishing here. This kid clearly lies because he doesn't feel cared for unconditionally. You can meet him at your house as long as you're there. If you don't trust him to do that, and I could understand why you wouldn't, you could meet him at a restaurant. Whatever. You can still treat him like your little baby, your little grandson. Something is seriously wrong with this kid. He's hiding lots of important things. So it's not just you can't have him in your house. You can't trust a single word he says. He lies about being married. He lies about causing damage. And yes, you need to ask him again whether he caused or he knows who caused the $2,000 worth of damage. Why? To satisfy the demands of justice, to get to the truth, to make him be honest. Nah, none of that's going to work. Because what you're going to say to him is, that you love him. And he can't feel loved by you until he's told you the truth about himself. This is an opportunity for him to feel loved while a mistake was made. Now, the odds, considering that he's a pretty pathologic liar, the odds that he'll tell you the truth, even with that prelude, are small. But it's really worth trying. So, good story. Next subject. This is from a woman who has lived in fear and controlling and anger and criticism all of her life. It's been done to her, and she has continued to do it to her husband and to her children. And she wrote to me and tells me how she begins her day now. The first thing she does is she starts off with a prayer. She says, "Good morning, Heavenly Father. I pray I can be more grateful and appreciate every second that I get to be living in this beautiful world of yours. I'm grateful to open my eyes, to be in a warm bed and home, to have a nice warm shower to go and enjoy. I enjoy so many luxuries of this world that many people in the world don't have at all. I'm going to close my eyes and feel you hold me." So what you're saying in your prayer is unusual from most prayers that I've heard, because most prayers are very rote, memorized. They lack feeling. Yours is lovely and practical. The purpose of believing in God isn't for him, it's for us. He's not an egomaniac. It's just true that as you call it what you want. I don't even call it prayer. In my own mind, it's called just talking to my father, my dad, talking to God. We connect with the greatest source of love in the universe. So now I'm going to list some other things that she says that are really not in so much part of her prayer, and describe the effect of each thing that she begins her day with. She begins her day by saying, "I am incredible just as I am." Now, this isn't one of those, cute little aphorisms that you put on a Hallmark card and send to somebody. This is just the truth. You are incredible as you are. You have quite a collection of unique, innate gifts. Everybody does. As we recognize them and recognize the unique combination of them, we are incredible, which gives us what? It's simply acknowledgement of how things are. It gives you confidence in who you are. See, we confuse confidence and competence as though we have to be really good at something. No, we just have confidence in knowing who we are, so we don't have to get confused when somebody says, "You're something else," or "You should be something else." No, I already know who I am, which is also what I should be, and I'm getting better at it, but that's me. The next thing she says is, "I don't need to be better." No, your gifts don't need to be better. What you're given innately doesn't need to be better. But you will become better as you consciously make better choices with the gifts that you have. "I am bold and courageous." You are. And if you recognize that, what is there possibly that could scare you? Interesting, of course, the next phrase you say is, "I don't need to be afraid." No, you don't. Not if you're bold and courageous. Not if you are incredible just as you are. Not if you feel loved. Not if you're not alone. Not if you're not worthless. You see, being afraid then becomes silly. It doesn't make any sense to be afraid when you recognize all that. Happy is a choice, you say to yourself. Very empowering. You can choose how you feel. Next, no drama, fear, or thinking, which means there are no obstacles to your being happy. Keep smiling. Not fake smiling, just remembering what is true. Have fun today. This is, after all, the end product of all these other things. Gifts, making right choices, making better choices, happiness. I'm going to look at everything in wonder. I'm going to look at everything and go, wow, that is so cool. I worked outside today and myself, and I just thought, this is so cool that I get to do this. I was shoveling gravel. I was moving rocks on a creek bank. I actually fell into the creek, which was a little less than clever, which when the creek water is 0 degrees centigrade is quite remarkable. It is startling. And yet, I just looked at the whole thing in wonder. I'm standing there in the creek, I'm freezing to death, and I'm looking around and going, this is so cool. You start off your day by saying, see the details and feel grateful. In other words, be gratitude. Patience and allowance, which is faith. You've got me. You've got me. Now, this is more obviously part of a prayer, which means you're not alone. You're worthwhile. Feel loved. In other words, remember simply what is true. And it connects you to the power that you talked about in the beginning. I am safe. You are enveloped in love, which makes you feel safe. Acknowledge the truth of how peaceful I am. My dear, these are beautiful. And having lived a life of controlling and fear and misery, this is just lovely. And you conclude by saying, I can do this. Now, the purpose of reading this isn't so that everybody else will know that this woman starts her day this way. Who cares? What matters is that we can all start our day this way. I've been having a day just like this. My day started this way. I fell into a creek at 0 degrees and my day was still this way. Didn't disrupt my day at all. My feet got a little cold after a while. We really can do this. We really can erase the pain of the past and start over. New subject. This person says, my 5-year-old daughter, Kirsty, can be a bit bossy. And then she acts like a victim when she doesn't get her way. No surprise there. She's a clever kid. And so she knows how to use bossiness to get a sensation of power. If that doesn't work, then she acts like a victim, which also gets her power. So she wins either way. See, give me that power. If somebody doesn't give that to her, she cries, and somebody then soothes her, which means she controlled their behavior, and she wins again because she was powerful. So this whole week, you continue, I've been pointing out every single time Kirsty is bossy. Oh, honey, I wish I could get every parent to do that. And in the parenting series that we're filming now, that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about. Without consistency, our children just regard life as one huge chaotic gamble. You are saving her life. Being bossy turns into being right all the time as adults. And that is crippling. Just a couple of months ago, you continue, it was all about helping her find the confidence to say what she wants. And it switched so quickly to bossy that it took me a little while to catch on that this is not just a phase that she's going to grow out of, that she needs to be taught. Bless you. Little children are very fluid. If you've got somebody who's naturally bossy as an adult and you teach them about bossy, they don't suddenly become doormats. They don't change that fast because they're adults. Children, because adults have these long-standing, decades long-standing patterns. Children can be more fluid than that, and you are wise to observe it. She started acting like a victim for power, and when that didn't work, she threw in bossy and victim again for power, and it's pretty clever. And she's pretty clever. So this could almost have been anticipated, almost. And unintentionally, kids just experiment. No child wakes up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to add, if I were to add bossy to victimy, I wonder if that would work. No, they just do stuff. They bark out an order and the whole room complies, and their little brains go, wow, cool. Just like training a seal. That's how they train seals. They don't tell seals to climb up on that little box and flap their flippers together. No, the seal's just fooling around and climbs up in the box. They throw the seal a fish, and the seal goes, well, cool. And then at some point, the seal claps its flippers together, and they throw the seal another fish, and the seal's going, I got it. Climb up on the box and clap my flippers together, and I'll be fed my favorite fish. And that's what children do. They just try stuff. You say, for instance, Kirsty was taking her 3-year-old sister's toys away from her, and her sister started crying. I told Kirsty to give the toys back, and she did. But then Kirsty ran to her room crying, as though, see, she were the wounded one. She's got that victimhood thing down. It took me a minute to realize how manipulative that was for her to cry and could become. So I went to her room and explained that she was the one who had been unloving to her sister, taking her sister's toys. And then by crying, she was blaming her sister and saying that her sister had hurt her feelings. This is the kind of clever stuff that adults do, and we just don't like it. But we don't recognize what's going on. You're recognizing as a mother that your child is doing it and doing something about it. This is heroic. Kirsty didn't understand me, which is understandable that kids wouldn't understand blaming and switching blaming and victimhood. So I acted it out with her. Now, this is clever. Every parent who's listening, this is clever stuff. I pushed her to the carpeted floor, meaning she wasn't going to hurt herself. I didn't, throw her down on a rock and she became brain damaged. I pushed her to the carpeted floor. At age 5, she fell all of, a foot. And when she looked startled at being pushed to the floor, which I'd never done before, I burst into tears. This is the mother talking. And I ran to the corner of the room. She looked very confused. I bet she did. So I said to her, who got hurt? She said, I did. I said, so why am I crying? And the little girl said, I don't know. I should be crying. And I said, yes, because you got hurt. But when I cry, I'm saying I got hurt, which is not true. And that's what you did with your sister. Dang, that's good. That's good stuff. Teaching kids stuff through play acting. We acted it out again with me taking a toy from her, and it looked like a light bulb went off in her head. It felt so good to teach her this because it's the same stuff I did all my life, but nobody noticed enough to teach me. People don't see the manipulation in victimhood. It's so sneaky. Yeah, you're right. Victims are very clever. They know just how to get their way and make everybody else feel guilty about it. New subject. We all want to feel loved, and most of us never have. Sometimes we find the love that we're looking for, but we don't quite know what to do with it. We miss the excitement of imitation love, for example, or we miss the control that we had over love when we find real love. So we might try to control the way people love us, even when it's unconditional. I know a woman who had never been fully understood or loved in her life, which is not uncommon. And when she found it from a wise woman, she was out of her mind with joy. She was just so exhilarated, peaceful, understood, thrilled. But here's where she got confused. She had always mistaken excitement for happiness. So she thought she had to duplicate the excitement of initially finding real love. To her, happy was excitement. And here was this happiness, so excitement had to go with it. Wrong, but it's what she learned. It's not the excitement of first being understood and loved that we want. It's the steady, solid peace that comes from doing what we need to do every day. Being truthful, feeling loved, trusting the love, feeling understood. And as with many recipes for success, then we have to rinse and repeat. We have to keep doing it. Or stir and repeat, or mix and repeat. As I do with concrete, you do it over and over again, the same thing. Like with painting or building or whatever. Often it's the same steps over and over, and then something of substance grows. And we get better at it. And it can become more exciting than the temporary thrill was in the beginning. I remember what it was like the first time I poured concrete somewhere, can't remember why, and thought, man, that's powerful. I spent all morning this morning out in the freezing weather preparing a bed by digging the dirt and the roots and smoothing the edges and putting up the forms and staking in the forms and putting in gravel and leveling it. And I am way better at pouring concrete now than I was then. I'm better. The end product is better. I'm faster, and it's more fun for me. This is true with pretty much anything that's worth doing. But we have to be patient and stick with the pattern that works instead of demanding excitement and shortcuts. Tempting, but they don't last. This woman complained that love wasn't as exciting as it once was. She demanded more techniques or different approaches, or in other words, more approaches or techniques to get unconditionally loved, which by definition is goofy. You don't use techniques. You don't use approaches to get unconditional love. Or she just demanded more and more of it from people. With the wise woman who loved her, for example. But that didn't work precisely because she wasn't willing to do the daily work, the daily, often unremarkable work, sometimes invisible work of believing, remembering, reading, calling, watching video chats, remembering again. And because of that, she very nearly lost all of it. About 2,500 years ago, there was a Greek slave named Aesop who told a story. The stories that he told we know as Aesop's fables, told a story of a man who had a miraculous goose. And every day when he visited the nest, the goose had laid a beautiful, glittering gold egg, which would be worth a lot. The man sold the eggs, the egg that he found each day, and he began to get rather wealthy, and you would rather quickly with an egg of solid gold. But he got impatient with one egg a day. So he killed the goose and cut it open to get all the eggs. But the goose died. So there were no more eggs. Happiness has laws, just like gravity. If we follow them, we will find happiness. It might not be as fast as we like. We may not be able to manipulate it as we've been able to manipulate imitation love in the past. Unconditional love may not come in the way that we thought. But if we follow the laws of happiness, we will find it just as predictably as gravity causes things to fall. And then we can add to unconditional love all the excitement and fun we could possibly want on top of genuine happiness. I enjoy a rather calm and happy and fearless life. And yet, I have all the excitement I want in addition, and can add more anytime that I wish. But it's on top of a foundation of feeling unconditionally loved. New subject. Somebody sent me a comment and said, I was watching a documentary on shell shock in the First World War. Soldiers would become incoherent or frozen or blind or scream or whatever after prolonged artillery shelling or being fired upon in trenches. This was written in an official government Second World War report 30 years later after they discovered shell shock. 30 years later, they talked about how to treat it in the 1940s. 1940s, not 1840s, not 940, no, 1940, not long ago, within many of our lifetimes. Hysterical screaming, this is in the manual, the military manual, shaking or gibbering, in other words, PTSD, can often be treated by abrupt commands, a gallon or two of cold water in the face, or the abrupt application of the flat hand to the side of the face. This is in 1940. That's how you treat PTSD. One can only imagine how well it worked, and yet it stayed in the manual. Somebody who has PTSD and you slap them in the face, you actually might succeed in making them calmer because they might become catatonic, meaning just completely withdrawn, and may never come out of their catatonic state for, in some cases, weeks, months, years. In fact, that particular treatment for PTSD, although he was maligned as an ineffective leader in many cases, General Patton in World War II actually followed that particular treatment for PTSD, did it in a field hospital in World War II. And even though it was in a government article, he had to apologize to the entire army for doing it. So they treated PTSD, a disorder known to be utterly incapacitating, with cold water or a slap. The person writing me, who wrote about the article that they read, said, kind of unbelievable, but not so different from when we snap at our children or tell them to stop it when they're behaving badly, when they're in pain. That's pretty smart. We do this every day of our children's lives. They get angry, they get smart-mouthed or defiant or withdrawn, and it's always from pain. They have PTSD, just a particular form called PCSD, post-childhood stress disorder, a book that I recommend that you read, Real Love and PTSD. And we think we can treat it by simply telling them to stop it. So we have two kids who are fighting and yelling at each other because they both have PTSD. And what do? Slap them verbally. Throw 1 or 2 gallons, to use the words of the document, of cold water in their face by yelling at them or by punishing them. We've learned very little about human beings or compassion over thousands of years. We keep repeating the same ignorance and mistakes. But now we can change that. I would suggest reading the parenting book. I would suggest taking the course that we're in the process of filming now and should be out fairly soon, where we teach people the power of ridiculously effective parenting instead of doing what has been done for thousands of years and produced the world wars and the fighting and the famines and all of the things that we read about in magazines. Me Too, No More, hashtag whatever, no more rape on campus. We treat these as separate phenomenon. They're all due to a lack of effective parenting in children who have PTSD that was caused, sort of by the way, by us. We haven't learned a lot. New subject. I know a man who has been learning real love for years, but often he gets it in his head and doesn't really get it in his feelings. He tried to preach the message to his wife before he lived what he was teaching, and understandably, she didn't listen very well. She got tired of the teaching without the loving, and so she left. She left him. So did his daughter, Jessica. But he still kept lecturing his wife. He would send her lecturing messages when they would talk on the phone. He would lecture her. So one day, after months of separation, now remember, she separated from this guy because she was sick of the way that he was lecturing her. So she wrote to him after months of separation. She said, Jessica and I, that's his daughter who also left him, his teenage daughter, were wondering if you would like to go out for dinner for your birthday with us next week. And she gave him some possible dates. I'm stunned that having left him, she was offering to take him out for a birthday dinner. He responded, I'm happy to go out with you individually, meaning go out with you, his wife, and with Jessica, his daughter, but not to celebrate my birthday. I would be happy to go out with you so that I can spend some time with you to see if you want to discuss our marriage, not our birthday. I will message Jessica separately. The reason she left is because he was endlessly lecturing her and making demands. And I said, your message is lecturing her and making demands. Again. He read his message and said, oh, I see it now. And to his credit, he saw it afterward. Many people don't see the things that they do ever, even when they're pointed out. He saw it. Unfortunately, he almost never sees it until after he's done it. And after you punch somebody in the face, seeing it afterward isn't as effective as not doing it. He said, I lectured them that birthdays are not important. Yes, you did. I ignored what they offered and demanded meeting like I wanted. I told them that their way isn't good enough and that they were wrong. I'm not listening or loving them. I'm not being grateful for the gift that they offer. I don't listen. I talk too much. I repeat the same behaviors. I go off and do things my way. And I'm arrogant. Now, that's a lot of things to say. And you might be tempted to think, wow, no wonder she left him. You might ask yourself if you have some of these characteristics, because I have had all of those characteristics at various times in my life. Maybe not so much about birthdays, but about something. There's a lesson in there for nearly every one of us who's listening, which is true with all of these stories. People hear a story about, somebody who has a 6-year-old daughter, and they think, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. I don't have a 6-year-old daughter. Turns out they have a 6-year-old son, which is really different. No, it's not about even whether you have children, not about whether you have a partner. We all do the same stuff. We just do it in slightly different flavors and with different people. So you may not be married, but I promise you have a coworker that you do a similar thing with, or a brother or sister or parent or ex-partner. We all do similar stuff when we get empty and afraid and when we're in pain and when we have PTSD. We just do. New subject. I know a man who is father to an adult child who took 6 long and expensive years to finish her degree at an expensive private school. So instead of 4 years, she took 6 years because, well, mostly she majored in playing around. And he paid for it. And when he told me how much the tuition was yearly for this school, this was a very expensive private school. So picture really big numbers. She majored in just, goofing. But eventually she did come home with a degree. She did graduate. She came home with one of those, what I call, and there might be some sense of judgment in this, but what I call a ridiculous degree. The kind of degree where you'll never, ever get a job doing that unless you are like, the world's scholar in that one subject. And then you write a book about it. Like the history of Eastern Russia from 1932 to 1938. Not a lot of places to go, not in the town that I live, where you could get a job with that degree. Now, if you're going to get your PhD and be a professor in that and apply to only a tiny number of major universities where they even have a course in that, maybe. But on the whole, kids take courses like this because they're fun. And they can pass the coursework. And at the end, they didn't really have to work all that hard. And that's why they come home with what I call a ridiculous degree. It just doesn't prepare them for anything. Of course, after all that expensive schooling, she came home. Her degree, by the way, was even more ridiculous than the history of Eastern Romania from 1932 to 38. She came home and she continued to major in playing around. So she didn't go to graduate school. She didn't get a job. No shock, considering that she had a major or degree in doing nothing. She just slept, played, ate, and complained. That's all she did. Her father encouraged her to find a job. He wouldn't have done that if we hadn't spoken. He thought that was just okay. I guess he assumed he would support her for the rest of her life, eating and sleeping. Naturally, she said that she couldn't find a job that used her degree. Really, no kidding. Now, about that one thing, she was right. But see, she knew before she got the degree she'd never get a job in that. But she did it anyway. Why? Because she knew that her father would pay for 6 years of her essentially goofing around in a sorority and having fun. I recall my college years, and I worked pretty hard, but compared to raising children and working and everything else I do now, college was vacation, holiday, the Europeans might say. But she was right. She couldn't find a job. Nobody advertises for a job requiring ridiculous degrees. Nobody does. And she wouldn't accept any other job. So there's no job that exists that asks for this degree. And she wouldn't accept a job where she couldn't use her degree, which put her in a position of doing what? What she was best qualified for, which was playing around and eating and sleeping and complaining. So she was pretty much guaranteed to be unhappy and to do nothing, which had been her intent all along, perhaps consciously. I mean, if somebody had said, what's your goal in life? I just want to play around for the rest of my life. But she had never been required to work, ever. Remember earlier in this video chat, we talked about a mother who went to the trouble to teach her child what manipulating and victimhood were like. She taught this child a lesson in life. This is the result of parents not teaching children lessons in life. They end up going to school, or they don't, and they come out of school prepared to do absolutely nothing. So she played at school, she played for the rest of her life, and Dad funded it all. He didn't just fund it, he was the major professor. He was the one teaching her that this was acceptable. Do you see? He was paying her and training her to be irresponsible. It's almost beyond belief. And we don't think of it in that way. But he threw her a fish every time she, like you do with the seal, who's being trained to clap its flippers together. He threw her a fish every time she laid in bed and did nothing. So what did she do? Laid in bed and did nothing. He was miserable, the father, with this situation. She quit looking for work, just quit. She realized that nobody was going to hire her, and she didn't want to go back to graduate school because that would be more work. I don't know how she came to that conclusion since undergraduate school hadn't been work, but anyway. He tried to help, but she refused every job she was qualified for, which was, of course, low-paying jobs. Those were the only jobs she could get, and he really tried to help her. He finally asked me, what could he do? And I said, well, easy. Your words don't mean... How long have you been telling her she needs to get a job? He said, I don't even remember the number, 2 years. 2 years she'd been doing this after school, just eating, sleeping, and complaining. I said, your words don't mean anything, and all of your helping her to find her, all of your helping to help her find her to get a job has done what? Nothing. What do you learn from this? He really didn't know. I said, you learn that she doesn't want to work. Is it clear to you now? Do you have the lesson? You're her major professor, and now I'm going to be yours. I am going to teach you a lesson in life, which you haven't done for her. She doesn't want to work, so what are you going to do? He said, well, I have no idea. I said, you're going to tell her the date by which she has to be out of the house. He said, well, but she doesn't have a job. I said, well, I got that nailed. I understand. And she's never going to get one if you use words. But she will respond to behavior. She will respond to action. I guarantee you that she will respond to action. So you just tell her the date she has to be out of the house. There's no discussion about this anymore because you've been talking to her for 2 years and that's yielded 0. I would personally suggest, to those who are listening, you use your own number, but I would personally suggest that you tell her she has to be out of the house by 30 days. Because it's a rule. What's the name of that rule? Parkinson's rule. Every job fills the time allotted to it. And every teacher knows this. Every teacher. If you give kids 2 weeks to write a term paper, they take 2 weeks. If you give them 9 weeks, they take some 9 weeks, and every kid writes the paper the night before. So if you tell her that she has 30 days to leave the house, she's going to play around until the day before anyway. So don't make it a long period of time. Because his protest was, well, she's not going to be able to do anything in 30 days. Yeah, I know. And she's going to discover that then. Now, and when you tell her 30 days, she will tell you, not might, she will tell you that she can't do it. She's going to tell you 2 things. Well, there are 2 things about this. She's going to tell you she can't do it. One, she's had months to do this. Months, 2 years. She had 2 years to get a job and be out on her own. And she's essentially refused with her behavior. She hasn't said, I'm going to stay in the house for the rest of my life, but with her behavior, she said she's going to. And second, now she can call these really good friends of hers that she talks about all the time, because I've been having communication with the dad, and she's always with her really good friends. And now she can call these really good friends of hers that she's developed during her playtime schooling at college and say, I need a temporary place to live. There's probably an element of unkindness in this, but inwardly I'm laughing my head off because these really good friends are going to discover they don't want a bum living in their home. They're going to get tired of her one by one. And she's going to do what every child I've seen go through this do. She'll go and live with a friend. The friend will say, well, you're going to need to go and find a job or find another place to live. Or her parents will tell her that the kid needs to leave. But she won't be without a roof for a while. She'll go from one house to another, and then eventually she's going to get to the really dead last good friend, and the friend's going to say, you've got to move. So she'll be motivated then by necessity, not your words, because she doesn't listen to those, to find a place to live and to get work. And she will. If you don't rescue her, she will find work. She'll hate it. She'll complain about it. She'll probably hate you. She'll probably tell you that she hates you, but she'll find work. And she'll find an apartment eventually, or a room in a boarding house that she can afford because she finally has the job. What's your job in this? Well, you've passed the job of teaching her responsibility. That's over. You lost your chance to do that. You may regain a chance to start teaching her about responsibility later, but right now, that's not your job. What's yours? To not give her money. That's it. That's your only job. No car, which is money. People say, well, I didn't give her money. I just gave her a car. Yeah, well, that's really different. She just converted the money to a car, or sometimes the kid will sell the car to get money to do drugs or whatever it is that they want to do. But you must not financially support her in any way. No car insurance, no nothing. She has been enabled in her entitlement for all these years from childhood, and it's killing her. She's a college graduate and she can't even get a job and just sleeps all day. That can actually lead to mental illness. You really are literally killing her, and it has to stop. There is no good time to do it. There's no good time that she's going to like it. She's going to hate it no matter when you do it or how you do it. She's probably going to hate you. You just tell her 30 days. You circle it on a calendar and you put the time. I'm not kidding. I've helped many, many parents do this. So you say, whatever the date is, at 12:15 p.m., you have to be gone to wherever it is that you're going to go. Well, I don't have any place to go. That was your choice. I've been trying to get you to get a place for 2 years. Well, I don't have a place. You'll find one, and that's when she'll start with the friends. If you don't specify the time, you do that because then they get to midnight and they go, well, I can't find anybody at midnight. So then they go to the next day. No, the time. And she still won't believe you. I know, it's kind of amazing. But it's because you've been teaching her irresponsibility for so long, you've done a very good job. She actually believes that she's completely without responsibility in life. So you buy some moving boxes, which you can do from U-Haul. This is not an advertisement. I just happen to have a U-Haul place up the street. You buy some nice moving boxes from U-Haul. They'll be only too happy to sell them to you. You put her name on them. Buy just enough boxes for her stuff. If you choose, you can actually do the work of taking the boxes that are flat and you construct them. You turn them into cubes or whatever. Make boxes out of them so that she can see what they're for. That's why. And so she can start putting her stuff. And you get just enough for her stuff. You know how much stuff she has. And you put them in her bedroom with her name on them and the date by which she has to be out again and the time. And you tell her that if the time arrives and she's not moved, that's why you pick 12:15. If you do midnight, it creates a lot of work for you. You tell her that you will put the boxes outside the house, either with or without her stuff. Up to her whether she puts her stuff in the boxes. You're not going to pack for her, but you're going to put the boxes out in the driveway, and you're going to take her key. She refuses to give you the key to change the locks. She moves out because she's now an adult, and she's been an adult for years. Many children do not believe you until the boxes are in the driveway. I know, scary, huh? And it sounds cruel. Some people could say, well, it just sounds like you don't care about the kid. You're kidding. We're saving this child's life. The children who are not taught this lesson and who are allowed to get to this point of irresponsibility continue to behave like this till they're dead. How do I know? Because I've been doing this for so many years that I'm helping 75-year-old parents who are asking me what to do with their 55-year-old son who's playing video games in the basement. No, we're saving this kid's life. Get the boxes, label them, put them in the driveway, because now words mean nothing. Only action will teach the consequences of her choices, and she's going to learn a whole lot from this. Sometimes we just have to learn from consequences. We know the words, we know what's right. Inwardly, she's known all along what the right thing to do was. To get a productive degree instead of a ridiculous degree. To work hard instead of just barely get along in school and graduate in 4 years instead of 6. We all have that inward sense of what is right and good. It would be so nice for us if we would listen to that voice. But if we're not taught, it's pretty easy to follow the people around us who are also not taught and not listening to that voice. Sometimes we have to learn from consequences. Sometimes our children do, and dang it, sometimes we do. I know I certainly have more times than I would like to admit. But the alternative is to make no choices at all. And then you just end up wherever circumstances put you. And you end up living in places that you really, really don't want to live in. So they're hard lessons, but we really do have to learn them. And the earlier we learn them, the better and the easier. We'll see you in a week.